Nonprofit governance cannot be reduced to static structures, nor can it be explained through a single theoretical perspective. The relationship between boards and executives is inherently dynamic. It is shaped by authority, accountability, trust, and the need to adapt to changing environments. Many governance theories originate in corporate or public management, yet when applied to nonprofit organizations, they reveal distinctive challenges. Nonprofits must sustain legitimacy. They often operate under resource constraints. They must respond to the expectations of diverse stakeholders. For this reason, governance cannot be understood through a single lens. Instead, it requires examining several complementary theoretical perspectives that illuminate the evolving relationship between boards and executives. One of the most influential perspectives is agency theory. Agency theory conceptualizes governance as a principal-agent relationship between boards and executives. Within this framework, boards are responsible for monitoring managerial behavior. Their role is to mitigate potential conflicts of interest and ensure that fiduciary responsibilities are fulfilled. Oversight mechanisms become essential governance tools. These mechanisms include financial controls, reporting systems, and formal evaluation procedures. Together, they safeguard organizational resources and maintain accountability. This perspective becomes particularly relevant in nonprofit organizations, where financial vulnerability or reputational risk can threaten long-term sustainability. A contrasting perspective emerges in stewardship theory. Stewardship theory challenges the assumption that executives are primarily motivated by self-interest. Instead, it proposes that leaders of mission-driven organizations often act as stewards who prioritize collective goals and social impact. From this perspective, boards function less as strict monitors and more as collaborative partners. They contribute strategic guidance. They enhance organizational legitimacy. They facilitate access to resources and networks. Governance, therefore, becomes a relationship built on trust and shared commitment to mission. However, reliance on trust also carries potential risks. If executive authority remains insufficiently scrutinized, governance imbalances may emerge. Effective governance, therefore, requires balancing the vigilance emphasized by agency theory with the relational trust highlighted by stewardship theory. Governance dynamics extend beyond internal relationships. Organizations operate within complex external environments. Resource dependence theory highlights the role of boards in securing critical resources. These resources include funding, expertise, and institutional legitimacy. Board members frequently serve as boundary spanners. They connect organizations with donors, regulators, professional networks, and strategic partners. Through these connections, organizations gain access to both material and symbolic resources. Executives then translate these resources into operational strategies and programmatic outcomes. In this sense, governance is not confined to internal oversight. It also involves the strategic management of external relationships that influence organizational survival. Another important perspective is stakeholder theory. Stakeholder theory frames governance as a process of balancing competing claims among diverse constituencies. Nonprofit organizations operate within complex stakeholder ecosystems. These ecosystems include donors, beneficiaries, volunteers, regulators, and local communities. Each stakeholder group possesses different expectations and varying degrees of influence. Governance, therefore, requires navigating these interests while maintaining alignment with the organization's mission. The relative importance of stakeholder groups often depends on three factors: power, legitimacy, urgency. These factors shape how organizations prioritize competing demands. Governance, therefore, becomes an ongoing negotiation between internal priorities and external expectations. Institutional theory adds another dimension. This perspective emphasizes the influence of cultural norms, regulatory pressures, and sector-wide expectations. Nonprofit organizations frequently adopt governance structures that signal conformity with recognized standards. Examples include audit committees, codes of conduct, and formalized board procedures. These structures help organizations maintain legitimacy when interacting with funders, regulators, and public audiences. However, institutional conformity does not necessarily guarantee effective governance. In many cases, formal structures remain loosely connected to everyday organizational practices. Institutional theory therefore explains why organizations that appear structurally similar may function very differently in practice. Another important perspective comes from leadership theory. Leadership theory emphasizes the interpersonal and cultural dimensions of governance. Governance is influenced not only by formal structures, but also by leadership styles and relational dynamics. Transformational leadership emphasizes vision and inspiration. It focuses on mobilizing commitment to shared goals. Adaptive leadership highlights learning and experimentation. It focuses on collective problem-solving in complex environments. Distributed leadership expands the concept of governance even further. Influence often flows through networks of staff members, advisors, volunteers, and beneficiaries. Governance, therefore, becomes a relational process grounded in trust, communication, and shared values. Global governance standards also shape how board-executive relationships are structured and evaluated. Regulatory frameworks and sector-wide guidelines establish expectations for transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct. Reporting requirements frequently emphasize financial disclosure and oversight. Governance codes promote principles such as integrity, diversity, and responsible leadership. International organizations have also developed broader recommendations intended to strengthen governance practices across sectors and regions. These standards provide important baselines for accountability. However, they may also encourage compliance-oriented behavior. Organizations sometimes focus on formal adherence to rules rather than substantive strategic decision-making. Each theoretical perspective illuminates a different dimension of governance. Agency and stewardship theories focus on the balance between oversight and trust. Resource dependence and stakeholder theories emphasize the organization's embeddedness within external networks and relationships. Institutional theory explains pressures that encourage organizations to adopt widely recognized governance structures. Leadership theory highlights the relational and cultural qualities that shape collaboration between boards and executives. Global governance standards codify expectations that influence how organizations demonstrate accountability and legitimacy. Taken together, these perspectives reveal that governance cannot be understood through a single theoretical framework. Governance, instead, emerges as a multidimensional phenomenon. It is shaped by structural oversight, relational trust, external dependencies, institutional legitimacy, and leadership practices. Effective governance, therefore, requires integrating insights from multiple theories while adapting them to the specific contexts in which nonprofit organizations operate. This integrated perspective carries implications for both scholarship and practice. For researchers, it highlights the importance of cross-theoretical approaches capable of capturing the complexity of governance systems. For practitioners, it underscores the need to cultivate governance practices that balance vigilance with trust. Organizations must diversify resource networks. They must engage stakeholders responsibly. They must foster leadership approaches that support learning and adaptability. When governance is grounded simultaneously in theoretical insight and practical awareness, nonprofit organizations become better positioned to sustain legitimacy. They become more capable of navigating uncertainty, and they strengthen their long-term organizational resilience.